Today, we look at how Taiwan is trying to attract foreign talent. I speak to John Murn of All Hands Taiwan about the challenges foreigners face finding work in Taiwan.
I also talked to Jessica Stone, the author of Crossing the Divide, about how to thrive in cross-cultural environments. This is Taiwan Insider. Welcome to the show. Taiwan wants to attract more foreign workers to Taiwan. In fact, its aim is to attract over 400,000 to come in the next decade.
But many foreign workers face many challenges in making Taiwan their new home. To learn more, I talked to John Murn. Murn is a co-founder of All Hands Taiwan, which is a professional networking nonprofit. We started by talking about what Taiwan is doing to attract more foreign talent.
Programs like the Gold Card, or probably most notably the Gold Card, appears to be what the government is doing to attract talent to Taiwan. The reality of that program is that's a quality, not quantity program, let's say. So they're hoping to attract maybe applicant numbers in the low thousands per year. So that's probably not going to move the needle tremendously on that 400,000 number. I would say increasing the graduate school admissions and scholarships and trying to retain a lot of that young talent appears to be the current crux of the plan.
Over the last year, I want to say, there have been numerous reports in a lot of English language outlets here in Taiwan about how hard it is for foreign workers to find jobs in Taiwan, especially highly skilled foreign talent. I really especially want to understand the cultural issues at this moment. What are some of the cultural differences that make it difficult for foreigners to find good employment in Taiwan?
I mean, I think at root, the job posting marketplace is not terribly obvious or accessible for non-Mandarin speakers. So Cake Resume is probably doing the best job of that. That's mostly engineering jobs. But those are higher end positions, but of course they're also available or looking for Taiwanese talent there. 104.com did recently launch an English portal, I guess last year or something. There's still a very active Facebook group called Non-Teaching Jobs in Taiwan. And frankly, it's probably the best place to find jobs for other industries than teaching. What's really not addressed specifically is that the companies that need the most help in Taiwan are companies that only employ Taiwanese people, but who need to add international talent. And there's multiple layers of things that might be preventing this from succeeding. One is just a general apprehension about cultural differences, right? There's the issue of losing face here. If you feel that you're not speaking English well enough, and then you and the other person both become embarrassed.
And what are some other issues that foreign workers coming to Taiwan face?
First and foremost, it's very hard to land a job before you come to Taiwan. The big companies are now getting to a place where sometimes they're having hiring events at US universities and things like that. A lot of companies are finally advertising jobs on LinkedIn. But culturally, I think in Taiwan, most of the companies are not not comfortable to hire someone without meeting them, without seeing that they're here and being committed, that kind of thing. So I think, first and foremost, people have to be here in most cases to get a job. And then a lot of times that means you land on a visitor visa, which has to be converted if you can find a job.
Earlier, you mentioned Taiwan's Gold Card program. And actually, originally, its numbers, and the government says that its numbers are very good. It's been able to hand out thousands of them over the last few years. But its retention rate isn't that good. In fact, most people with gold cards aren't even in Taiwan working. So what is Taiwan doing wrong to retain these workers more, and how could it be improved?
I believe, this may be incorrect, but I believe that there's a minimum salary requirement of something like 160,000 NT a month, which is a very high salary for Taiwan. That's probably going to be an executive or an extremely rare engineer or specialist of some kind. A lot of companies are going to balk at that kind of salary in the first place, even if they need that talent. So I think that falls to the government to try and help prepare the companies for that. So, like you said, there's people here who are freelancing. There's people here who have remote jobs from other countries. I mean, that part, it's benefiting Taiwan, right? You're spending the money that you earn from somewhere else here in Taiwan. Sure, that's great for the economy. You love being on the gold card because it makes living here easy, and you love Taiwan. Great. That's also good PR for the gold card. But I don't get the impression that retaining the professionals has to do with doing more for the professionals. I think that the marketplace is not ready to accommodate them in terms of hiring them, paying them, and also considering the kind of work culture that they might be interested in. I think the companies need to be better prepared for the gold card to continue to be a successful program.
Cross-cultural skills are key if you want to thrive in a new country or work environment.
Itamar, imagine working for both the U.S. and the Chinese state media.
Not too long ago, it wasn't that hard to imagine.
Right. Hard to imagine now, right? But, well, our next guest did just that, and she was also the leader of the White House Foreign Press Group under the Trump administration. Jessica Stone is the author of Crossing the Divide, 17 Lessons to Help You Thrive in Cross-Cultural Environments. And she told me what she thinks the key is to cross-cultural effectiveness.
Well, you have to start from a place of admiring and respect for the differences, not jumping to conclusions over those differences. In my book, I talk about really the starting point I believe everybody needs to have is identifying their own cultural biases and foundations, because we all compare everyone else to what we know and to what we think. And so really taking the time to self-assess and take a deep dive into what shapes my ethos, my work ethic, my sense of time, my method of communication, and why am I this way? And why is my family this way? Whether it's economic status or languages that you grew up around, geography, religion, race, ethnicity, all of those things come to bear, but they don't completely dictate, but they really shape who you are. And so using the time to get that information about yourself so that you can calibrate for the differences you discover in others is really, really critical. And it's something I've written about in the book, but I'm also working with students to really challenge high school and college students to think through what do they need to do to be more effective communicators and leaders in multicultural contexts, because that is now. It's not the future, it's now. Americans don't have to leave their home. They could live in Iowa and still be working internationally.
What would you say is the most difficult thing about understanding other people's cultures and mentality?
For me, it's really the values that can be so different, that can be really hard to overcome. And, ultimately, as a reporter who believes in truth, I find myself, my whole reason to be is to discover truth. So when truth is defined differently, when it's controlled, when it's what the boss says and it's not what you empirically can discover as truth, that gets a little hairy and definitely uncomfortable. I mean, at some point, we all have, our red lines around what we will and won't, what we can and can't accept. Legal differences, different concepts of justice, sentencing guidelines. Those are really different views, and they're very starkly different between China and the United States. And I do think what's hard too is, as an American, we preach authenticity and you got to be real, right? And yet it doesn't feel real to calibrate. It doesn't feel authentic to calibrate for the population that you're working with. You don't feel like you can be yourself. And in some ways, you can't be your exact self, but you will be the self that they can understand through their cultural lens. I think I struggle definitely with the sense of how do I overcome the idea that I have to change who I am to work in this context. And I think what I ultimately settled on was the idea that no, I don't have to change who I am, but I do need to change how I interact. And that's not disloyal to my culture or to my sense of who I am. That is a choice to be the most effective person in that environment that I can be.
So you don't have to lose your own identity to identify with others, right? That's one of your lessons.
My favorite one, yes, because I do I really feel like our modern American culture is telling us, no, you just have to become whatever's around you. And I think that would be a terrible loss if people just become the same. Then we lose the individual ideas they have, the individual observations they have, the creativity they bring. You don't have to go that far. You're not trying to become someone else, but you can identify with somebody else by learning the toolkit that we talk about in Crossing the Divide. And that is invaluable.
Well, Itamar comes from a very multicultural family. Your parents are from Argentina. They speak Spanish, among many languages. And you speak Spanish, English, and Chinese. You're marrying a woman from Taiwan. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Getting married soon. That's exciting. So I know that you move very easily, I think, between cultures. What do you think helps you to be able to do that?
Well, I wouldn't say I move easily between cultures, right? Every time you move somewhere new, there's always a new difficulty. The biggest one being adapting yourself to a new situation and leaving behind everything that you knew, basically, especially your social connections. But I think the key that I've always relied on is curiosity. I think when you go somewhere new, I've moved to different places in the US. I came from a different country before. I grew up in the United States, and now I've been living here for almost 4 years. You have to be curious. You have to want to learn more about a new place. You want to have to explore, that place and see what the people there think, how they approach the big questions of life and things like that. And especially you have to try at least to learn about their culture and preferably their language.
That's great advice. I know you started at 8 years old. You were curious about Chinese, and you were the only white guy in a Chinese school. Like there's, weekend Chinese guys.
I was the only non-Chinese
Really?
person. Yes, I was the only one. Yeah. So that just started because I'll tell you the story. I had like a very, very good friend named Roger at that age, and he was from China, actually. And I loved spending time with him, and I would learn about where he was from and Chinese culture through him and through just being friends with him. And that kind of like sparked an interest. I started reading books, and then I started going to the same weekend Chinese school he went to, because you know, in the United States, like we could call ethnic Chinese children, a lot of times they go to these weekend Chinese schools to learn the language that their parents speak. Right. And culture and things like that.
I went for 1 month and I dropped out.
I did the same with Hebrew school, so don't worry. Yeah.
Well, that is so cool. So you've always had this curiosity about other cultures.
Yeah, but especially about like Chinese culture, I would say. And I started at that age. I did it for 2 years. I had to quit because I then had a teacher who didn't speak any English, so I was very lost. Of course, the other kids I was with, they usually spoke Chinese already, right? So for them, it was just about learning characters and learning better grammar and things like that. But I took it up again in high school, and yeah, I'd always been interested in it, basically.
Wonderful, and it's been great for your career.
Yeah, I guess more like I found the career to fit that in a way,
Right.
but yeah.
Well, I think that's great advice from Itamar, being curious about other cultures, interested in other people, right?
Yeah.
That helps. Well, thanks so much for tuning into Taiwan Insider. I am Natalie Tso.
And I'm Itamar Waksman.
And do follow us on social media. We're on YouTube and Twitter, Facebook.
Yeah, you could like our videos.
And do leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Bye.
Bye.